So, hello, this is our recorded conversation with Sari Rautio, who I usually have conversations with, but I said that, okay, maybe it's good if sometimes we record what we talk about, what we think about. Okay, who is Sari Rautio? She's been doing many things in politics for some time. We are both... I usually say some veterans in local politics. We've been around for a while, but now she is the leader of the EPP group in the European Committee of the Regions. You are the leader of the EPP group of the European Committee of the Regions, and the first female leader of the EPP group in the European Committee of the Regions, as I understand. And we both talk a lot about women in politics, how important it is to celebrate women in politics, female leadership, because we are still, there's a long path behind and also in front of us. We have many things to discuss. And what I always think is important to understand, because you're from Finland, and to understand what shapes your thinking, what are the things that we're shaping, what are the most important, guiding mythologies, how you perceive the world. I was talking yesterday with young elected politicians, and I was telling them that I always have some sort of golden rule that works for me, some guiding myths. So let's start with you. Welcome, hello. And yes, coming from Finland, tell me, what is that surprises you here in the European decision making? And tell me about your thinking framework.
Okay. Thank you, dear Kata, for the first. It's so great to be here. And as always, I enjoy talking with you. I enjoy talking with people because it's really important that we discuss. Normally, when there is something going not in the right direction, it is because we didn't have the discussion in advance. Then we have to have it afterwards. And that's not the best way to do it. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy to be here. Well, why am I here? Why is Sari from Finland enjoying the European politics? Well, for the first, I'm a mother. And I must say that being a mother of 4 already adults and a grandmother of 2, that is like driving me in the politics, definitely. And why it's so important is like, there's this old saying that when we should leave the planet in a little bit better shape than it was before us. And I think that there's a big wisdom in it. I had a very wise grandmother who I lived when I was small, since I have a very young mother, and she went to school. And I think this is something also very important to understand, how we can make it possible for all women to take part and do what they want. Not that someone else is telling what you should and could do. So this is like the main thing for me. Well, then the other issue, of course, coming from here is the sustainability. I truly believe on ecumenia. I believe in, so that we have to find the ways that we can live in peace, not just among each other, but among the nature, with the nature. And I think that since there were times when we people didn't quite understand the importance of the nature, I think this is something we have to work on really closely. And the third thing is that I'm really excited about the local democracy, because we are closest to people. And that is true. Every day when you go in your city, or I go in my city, in the city of Hämeenlinna, I meet and I talk with those people who voted for me. They have needs, they have ideas. Sometimes they even thank me for something. but normally it's like everyday business. It's not something out there. And if and when we can combine here in the Committee of the Regions this local view together with everyday life, so I think this is a perfect place to be.
Absolutely. I think I usually try to sell the Committee of the Regions among politicians.
Yeah.
Why is it so special? Because here you're from EPP, I'm from the Socialist group, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we are looking for the things that connects us. We are looking for the things that we both understand, and we have a lot in common. Also, my thinking is very much shaped by being a mother. We both love nature. Yeah. We love the woods, and this is a place to recharge. And yes, we've been around in local politics, and we love local politics. We believe in decentralization. This is super important. So tell me, what are the things compared to how you do politics in Finland and how things are done here in Brussels? What is something that surprised you here, negatively or positively? And what is one thing that you would implement in European politics coming from Finland that says you do this, but it's not happening here?
Yeah. Well, the best thing here is the connection. No matter if you come from Italy, if you come from Spain, from Germany, from Hungary, from Finland, we always, as you said, try to find what is connecting us. And also here we speak more, we discuss, we try to understand each other's point of views. And that is something I really enjoy here. And we always find some common language, no matter what is the native language of each and every member. So that is something really great. But then coming from Finland, some people say that Finland is the land of engineers. So we are very structured and so on. So perhaps I would love to have a bit more of that in here. But nevertheless, I don't want to lose this humanity which exists more here. And also what I think is great in this European level, in the Committee of the Regions, is that we see here clearly the diversity what we have in Europe, the richness of diversity. When different kinds of people coming from different regions, share their ideas, we get better solutions, and that is something I am always trying to tell back home, that we can learn a lot. It's not just because we Finns there is perhaps a history that we Finns tend to feel that we know the best. We live in such the happiest country of the world for the 9th time in the row.
Do you feel that?
I do, but I'm not perhaps a typical Finn, because the biggest discussion at the moment in Finland is that, no, that can't be true. That is so Finnish. But coming back to that we can, every time when I come here, I learn something. And I always try to take something back. And that is something I think truly, truly important. But and understanding that no matter how big the diversity is, there still is always these combining things. And that is important. And the last thing I want to say here, what I do when I try to sell, that's a good way to put it, to sell the Committee of the Regions, is that we are actually doing here the things that is so often discussed, at least in Finland, that when some legislation comes out, why didn't we do something in advance? I'm telling, hey, we in the Committee of Regions, we are trying to influence on the legislation before it's ready. And that is something I think we ought to, be more proud of and tell more about.
No, that's true, and I didn't thought of that. I try, part of the strengths of the Committee of the Regions for me, and the usefulness of the Committee of the Regions, that it's also partly a training place for politicians. We have a lot of, with the alternate members, we have more than 700 politicians in a 5-year cycle, even more because of the changes in elections. Yeah. We have here local leaders from all different realities, from the smallest towns to islands to mountain areas, capital cities, presidents of regions, who come here and practice politics in a very different way. And it's an important practice because everybody works at home, everybody leads at home, so we live in our own towns. We come here and we practice politics in a very different way, finding things that connects us, looking beyond our cities, our problems, finding similar problems, and finding very different perspectives, understanding very different realities.
Exactly.
It pushes you out of your comfort zone a lot
definitely.
of times, and it really, I think, it really makes better leaders. Change of this perspective, the local, the European, and this constant shift of perspectives. I think it makes better leaders. But you told me something that really stuck with me. It's the engineering mind. I never thought of Finnish people as an engineering mind, but you're right. It would just never occurred to me. And it brings me back to a book that really shaped my last year's thinking. It was about how different it is when engineers run a country or lawyers run a country. It doesn't says one is good, one is bad. It's very different, very different. And most of the European countries are run by lawyers.
And growing.
And it's a very different way of looking at things. It was a very interesting book. It was about China and the engineering state, all the upsides and downsides of it. But it's interesting to look at it. Okay, so one of our big discussions now is, okay, we know the responsibilities of our leaders, local leaders, growing responsibilities. The other issue is their resources, our resources for these growing responsibilities. There is a budget proposal on the table, a new 7-year European budget, and it is about how much money the member states are spending together. It's not so big that we are spending together. It's around 1% of the European economy that is redistributed through the European budget. Everybody thinks it's a super big budget, but in reality, it maybe looks big from a city, but on the European level, it's not. So it's on the table. How much will be where we'll be spending together through the European budget, and where are we investing this money? And our politicians, mayors, regional leaders, we are very much focused on cohesion policy, which is today 1/3 of the budget, and it's a very decentralized investment tool. And the future of cohesion policy is, it's changing how cohesion policy will be designed according to this budget. Okay, tell me, coming from a frugal country, when it comes to how much we should be spending together, and how centralized or decentralized should this spending be? Should we support the strong who are going fast, or should we keep this decentralized and territorial, ephemeral investment serving cohesion? Tell me, what is the state of this discussion in Finland between the local leaders and the national leaders? How are you selling cohesion?
An excellent question again, and I think I need to start first that how are we actually understanding cohesion policy? Because I find this, when I discuss about this in Finland, people don't actually they have very different ideas of cohesion policy. Some think that cohesion is just something, separate. Just you build a motorway in Italy. That is cohesion policy. But then when I start to tell about, look at this, look at the culture center we have in my city. It was made with cohesion money, the part of it, and the cohesion money was like helping to collect the money also from the private sector, and also, of course, from the other public sectors in the region. So then they start to think, okay, so cohesion policy can also be that. Or then when I talk to people who live in the northernmost regions in Finland or in the eastern regions, obviously they understand cohesion policy as a cornerstone for the the well-being and developing the society overall. And then when I go to the capital, to Helsinki region, then they are like, why do we need cohesion policy? We should, keep it like the engineer mind, keep it quite, be quite focused, and especially at this time to focus on defense and so on. So to those I say, let's think about single market, because the frugal Finns and also other frugal countries are calling for stronger single market, more competitiveness, and to get more out of Europe, and that is what I explain. And when people actually start to listen, that from Finland, about 66% of the trade that goes abroad goes to European Union. So that's 2/3 of it. And I say, look, if we invest, because cohesion policy is investment policy, that is not charity, nothing like that. That's an investment policy. If we invest in Europe, we or you, the Finnish companies, you have better possibilities to sell your products. And then I had a very interesting discussion with a guy who is actually quite top on the political level, and he looked at me and said, "Really?" And I said, "Well, think about it and think it again." So I think what we need at the moment is more open and fair discussion about cohesion policy. The other thing what we need when we talk about the MFF and the future of cohesion policy is to tell the story, the success story of what happened in 2004 when there was the big enlargement. Without cohesion policy, we would be in a totally different situation. But because we had successful cohesion policy, we have stronger Europe, stronger union, and we are all stronger together when there is a big pressure coming outside of union. So that saying we often hear and use here in the Committee of the Regions, that cohesion policy is a glue. That's not only a glue, but that is also the cornerstone, the glue, and the thing that makes it possible for us to have peace and prosperity. So but you need the discussion. If you go too quickly to conclusions, you might think that, okay, that's not useful. And we have been asking also in the Committee of the Regions that we do need renovation into the system. And that is what we want. But we don't want to lose the most important thing, the idea of what the cohesion, the word, how we can be more together and more united in our diversity. So coming from a frugal country, we should be even more interested in cohesion policy if and when we want to, get Europe stronger and also safer.
I agree. I also had many discussions with other frugal countries in the past weeks, and the story I tell is this story, that it is a mistake to disconnect cohesion policy from competitiveness, because this is on the table, that it's super disconnected.
Yep.
Because cohesion policy was born together with the single market.
Exactly.
Because you cannot have a single market. Because, okay, what is the single market? We have this single market because we thought, and it proved us right, that if we do it together, if we have a common market, we will make more together, more money together. Our economies work together, and it's proven. So it's not you saying and me saying. We do together because we are together with this market. Our GDP is 7-8% bigger than if we would do it alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. The conflict is that these gains are territorially not evenly distributed. So somewhere it's much more, and usually those who are strong, they get stronger, and those who are not strong enough to compete, they usually get weaker. So when the single market idea was born, right away a reinvestment, a redistribution mechanism was born. And cohesion policy is a redistribution, reinvestment mechanism, which reinvests like 0.3% today of the European GDP part of the surplus that we make together in a territorially even way, in a very decentralized way.
Yeah.
Because it not just invests in, it invests in the single market because we build roads. We invest in the workers, in skills, in the health of their workers. We invest in local economies. We invest in small and middle-sized companies. It's sometimes incredible from a small proportion of money, you can do so much.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very amazing policy, but it's very important not to disconnect it because the single market only functions if there is a redistribution, reinvestment mechanism.
Exactly, yeah. And also, what came now into my mind, which I forgot to say, is the connection to democracy. Because we know that if there isn't the feeling that we can, the people on the local and regional level can understand what we are doing together in Europe, there's a risk of not to believe in our common Europe. And cohesion policy is a tool also to that, to show, to make it visible what is actually, what is the added value of our European Union. And that is not the same everywhere. But when it's built, the finesse of cohesion policy, from my point of view, is that when it comes from the bottom up, it is built on the local needs and also on the local possibilities. So it's actually giving strength to local stakeholders and regional stakeholders to build build their own future. And that is like, here we go to the European values, how we see human beings, how we see, that it's not somebody somewhere who is telling what we should do, but the communities, the local communities can build up themselves the life that they see meaningful. And so that also each and everyone in the region has a role or has a possibility to have a role. And also now when we are living this huge time of changes, we have transitions, of course, because of the climate change, and we have a transition going on because of the technology, we have a transition going on because of the demography. So for all these different things and phenomena that are going on, cohesion policy is a flexible tool to find the next steps. So that is why I find it rather even stupid to say that we don't need cohesion policy, because I think then the one who says that doesn't really understand what cohesion policy is all about.
And we see that most of the leaders don't. So it's our role to keep the discussion around the European budget very real. Yeah. Very real. What is that we are doing today, how it works, what is the function, how it's connected to many things. It usually surprises people when I tell them that cohesion policy is one of the most important policy mainstreaming tool of the European Union, how it works. Everybody wants to spend European money. Even big cities wants to spend ERDF, something, a life program,
there are many.
Interreg, something. If you want to learn European money, you have to learn it all the European policies and all the things that are going on, and it keeps you updated. Because, we have a lot of ambitions in Europe. We are innovators in the world in many things, in climate neutrality, in air pollution, in participation, in gender equality, in accessibility, in circular economy. And when you want to use European money as a local leader coming from the smallest municipality, you have to learn it all. And we usually complain that, it's so complex and bureaucratic, but it's part of the process. That this is how our leaders keep up with what is happening on the European level, because there is an acceleration of change. And local leaders became the change managers. And it's very complicated. And much more work than before, much more responsibility than before. And cohesion policy helps this transition, because everybody, every region, every community is in transition. So it's, but this is our role. We have to highlight all these things cohesion policy serve.
Yeah, and we also have to, what I think we should make, fix in cohesion policy is to make it more, to make more possibilities to help each other as well, because not everybody can do all, but we have to find these connections so that people from different regions, different universities, different stakeholders can actually work together, and it's useful for those who know more already, so that it would be useful for those to help those regions that are like coming perhaps from behind or don't know so much. And I think this building like social cohesion is also possible through the money. It's not only about the money. The money is a tool, as always in politics. Even though I come from EPP, the money is not the goal. That's the tool, and the social cohesion that is possible through this. You said it quite complex way of working. It doesn't have to be complex, but it's about understanding how things are linked in the same system. Then if something happens here, it will affect there, and that is why I must say that I am quite excited. Also, I see the worries, but I'm still more excited about the possibility of performance, bringing the performance into cohesion policy. But of course, at the same time, we have to be careful that we are not losing something really relevant. But if we can have more and more people from some region or city to together define a goal they want to achieve, and then to build it up from there, I think that might bring those renovations to cohesion policy that is also asked after in frugal countries, so to say.
It's clear that there is no golden path.
Yeah.
And how I look at it is that, okay, on the European level, together, the Parliament, the Council sets the goals where we have to arrive to. But the path is very different, and the speed is different for the different communities. It won't be the same path for your cities, for my cities, because of many differences. Where are we starting? Which is our base camp? We have to climb a big mountain. It's very different. Where is our base camp? And how long the road takes, and how steep road can we make with our people? But this is also the responsibility of national and local leaders to understand the potential, the speed, the change management capability of a society, because every society has this change window, a speed that change can be managed.
But now we have the change window in the whole Europe.
But it's still not the same for every community.
Of course not.
And I think it's a mistake when we think that everybody can go and accept, especially social change, demographic change, change in norms, change in the way of doing things, organizing our societies. We come from different base, and I'm not sure we have to converge to the same way of organizing our things. I think our diversity, we said that many years ago, is part of our strength, and it is. So we have to give room for maneuver. We have to give tools. We have to give flexibility of leadership. Okay, we know you have to get there. We know that it's up to you to cut your path, and we need to help many different paths. And some works for others, others cannot use the same path. But this diversity of different paths for societies, a mix of economic measures, a mix of social measures, a mixture of the lawyers bred state and the engineer driven state. There is no optimal mix, and it's the constant struggle. It's a constant evolving of policies and the way of thinking. But this is why it's good that we talk to each other, we watch each other's stories, what we learn from it.
Yeah.
And this is a support group. I always say the Committee of the Regions is a support group for leaders, because leadership sometimes is a very lonely thing.
It's a support. Definitely, I agree that it's a support group, but it's also a group where you can get inspired. And I think that is also very important, that when we see that, okay, they did it like that, and we have the same goal in a way, and they did it like that. So we can not only learn from each other, but we can also get inspired that things are possible. And I think this is what this world definitely needs. So that is why communication and discussion, debate, and like wondering, wow, you did it like that, is really important also to get the competitiveness to rise, to get the security to rise, and to get the people's happiness to rise. And I find this really, really interesting and important. And also, I want to go back to this democracy. That people, the European system is, I find it the best in the world, because in the European system you can choose, or we have chosen together our common values, which we cherish. We have chosen the rule of law. We have chosen the human rights. We have chosen that we want to build better. We want to have the better solutions for climate change and all this. But then we decide together only those things that are needed to decide together. And then the people have the power to choose and, to make their, to enjoy their diversity. So I think this is something very human way of thinking. It's not the easiest way. Definitely, you asked earlier, would it be easier, or do people in my country think it would be easier if it would be centralized? Of course, it would be easier, but we wouldn't get better. And that is the idea, of this our union, how it works. And I think we ought to be proud of it. And we can see now that since there is so big turbulence, I would say, not turbulence, but turbulence going around, we have been able now in the European Union to make trade deals. Yesterday, Australia, India, Mercosur is coming. We have been able to find diverse partners, and this shows that this is the winning way to do it. And cohesion is a crucial part of that.
It's a perfect closing sentence. Sari, thank you very much for your time, and we will continue our discussions.
We will discuss every week. Thank you so much, dear Kata.